So learning, I guess my point is, learning is central. That we tend to look at ourselves in the learning process and say, I learn. I go out in the world and I learn. And I think it's more healthy for us to say, I am learned. Education is automating the same paradigm it was using 100 years ago. And the world's changed. The world no longer wants that anymore. And that's where the conversation with business is. I mean, I don't know whether you've heard this statistic or not. One of the most powerful statistics is in the Fortune 500 in 1980, right? Less than half of the companies that were part of the Fortune 500 in 1980 were in the Fortune 500 in 1990. Now this is the biggest money in the world, the smarts, right? It's not surviving. It's going down. People with big money, with an interest in surviving in the world, are asking the question, why aren't we doing this? And they're coming to learning. They're saying because our organizations, our systems, and our people aren't learning. And that's having some significant trickle-down effect into the educational system. Now, this is not the reason why a teacher treats a child differently, but it's part of the machinery, the structure, the context behind the teacher, that as it starts to value, as the system itself starts to value human beings for their capacities for learning, rather than at any given time what they know, that's where the shift starts to happen. Because up to now, we miss the fact that we're able to learn in ways that constrain our capacities for learning.
Say that again?
We are constantly learning in ways that constrain our capacities for learning. An example, is the way that our education system works, and we can come back from this back into the whole career, the whole process of childhood that we were talking about earlier. But I think that the main lesson of education is to learn to distrust your capacities for learning. And we accept that as pretty much the norm. It's not as if the point of all of this was to meet somebody on some edge, just like you would meet somebody, a baby with their hands trying to help them walk, right? How could it be any different with knowledge? Why wouldn't we go right to the edge of wherever, or psychology, or with how they're able to trust themselves in conversation or being together, that we would try to reach, make contact with them on the edge, and move in a way that will allow them to feel themselves and extend themselves into being able to be here, right? Now, I think that's as relevant for learning math better as it is to understanding the ecology, as it is to becoming self-esteeming human beings, as it is it's the most practical and the most profound. And that it's possible to redesign education to do that. And the only shift that we need is to go through a shift in which we say we're more concerned with somebody's capacities for ongoing learning than we are for what they know at any given point. And the case is easily made. So you ask, how can these environments learn to do this? I mean, that's the first point. How can they learn to do this? Because we're not going to design environments that work this way. We're going to have to design, and we're going to have the intention of wanting to reach out and make contact with children on this edge long before we're ever going to get there. Believe that there's nothing that we can do for our children and for ourselves and for the organizations and nations and societies and the species, the planet, the ecology, whatever level you want to cut it, that's more relevant to how we become alive and solve our problems than becoming more self-sustainably learning-oriented.
The corporate entity.
No, I am interested in designing an organizational/social virus, okay, that helps systems and people become more learning-oriented. But I don't think the value system has to shift that much. It does in our general perception of things. But in terms of what's going on, and more, as I said, of the boardrooms, the organizational scientists of the major universities, and the practitioners of organizational science in the boardrooms and executive committees of business, they're getting this. They're getting this. They're spending big money to understand this. They need to become better learning systems. And the first thing that a better learning system needs is better learners. And so as this starts to trickle down because of the necessity of it financially, right, then it changes the context that education and parents start to see through, feel through. It isn't that that's where that the machines of business, business as a machine, is going to have this care for this developing child in the way that we just got through talking about it. What I'm saying is that the parents aren't going to have the time or the mental frameworks, the mental frame of reference, to do it either, unless society itself starts to bring forth a different value in the way that's in the background. It's in the plumbing, it's in the atmospherics, so to speak. And that's what I'm speaking of. That there's a number of different things converging now on changing and shifting and contributing to the value of human beings as learning, as becoming learning-oriented. And one is what we're learning about learning, the psychological, the self-esteem, cognitive science revolutions, multiculturalism. How is it that we coexist? Collaboration. It's not like learning's about individual things. It's about doing things together. That's what business needs. It doesn't need individuals going off in a million different directions. It needs people that can cohere together into groups that can do things as a task in an amplified and very powerful way. So all these different forces, what we're understanding about depth psychology, Jungian's archetypes are being translated into learning styles. All these different things are starting to constellate and converge and inform one part of what's happening to change education. Meantime, we've got all this reform movement. Education isn't working. We're not competitive. There's this pressure. And we got business over here, which is producing a lot of the pressure, and is the kind of financial voice saying, we need learners. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things starting to converge. And that what I'm interested in doing is, how do we start to connect those up and get this virus spinning so that these various participants, these systems and people, and can see that they're across the gap from one another, but they're agreeing just like you and I are, right? We're coming at it from different points of view. Yet the place that we can agree, that kind of transcends our language, is that if we can help human beings become more self-sustainably learning-oriented, I mean, what else can we do for them? I mean, anything else we do for them is putting something on them we think they ought to have. And if we do that for them, then they're going to be able to get and extend into being whatever it is they can be. I don't think there's anything else we can do for anybody. And when all of a sudden society and politics and social structures and business and what we know about the psychology and cognitive science, all these things are lining up to support that. And that's why I'm so hopeful.
Do we have time?